Lost Art with Andrew Cox, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant. thelostart.podbean.com. Get some merchandise and help support the podcast and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Now on all major podcast platforms. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be a guest, tell your veteran story, discuss your veteran business or organization. Email The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. Andrew Cox, a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. See the project story at tillvalhallaproject.com. Thanks for tuning in. Please enjoy the podcast that's giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
All right. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we'll be having my veteran story with Marc Longoria. But before we get into the episode, if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you go hit up our website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check us out, see what we're all about. There is a merchandise tab. You can click on that, go in there, get you a cool hat, shirt, something like that. Help support us and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, I want to give a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project for allowing me to be an ambassador for their incredible organization. If you don't know much about the Till Valhalla Project, I encourage you to go see their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. They are doing incredible things. See if there's any way that you can help them out in any way.
Hey, we don't have any radio contact with these guys. And we've lost radio contact. And so they tried reaching them and they just couldn't over and over. So that they called us, they get on the frequency, on the emergency frequency and see if you can reach them.
Yeah.
And so I was on the radar. So my sergeant says, go. So we have an emergency frequency. I keyed it up, called out their call signs and nothing. I called them on several times. They couldn't hear me. And so like, these guys are inbound. They're not going to stop. They're inbound.
Yeah.
And they've got no direction now other than the last heading that they were given. So we have what's called a primary and then a secondary target. The primary is the actual blip. So every time the sweep goes by, it picks up, the signal of,
right,
where the airplane's at. Then they have a secondary, which is a system inside of their aircraft where we get to see, in case the primary is gone, we get to see a little circle and it has a few numbers on it, kind of like their call sign.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could see both. I could see the primary and then I could see secondary. So on secondary, we had a thing called ident, which is like identify yourself. So even though I was calling them, they couldn't talk back to me. They were actually hearing me. I just didn't know that because they had no way to. I couldn't hear them.
Oh, they just couldn't communicate with you.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So that's how it turned out. And I found out because I asked them, hey, if you hear me, ident. I called him the first guy. If you hear me, ident. And so he presses a button in his cockpit. It just pops up on my radar. Like, okay, he hears me.
Yeah.
All right. And so then I called the second guy. If you hear me, ident. He starts popping. All right. So they can hear me. I just can't hear them. I start giving them headings. They usually always, actually, when you give them an instruction, they have to repeat it to you.
Yeah.
Of course, they couldn't repeat it because I can't hear them anyway. So anyway,
so you do the same type of thing, like just ident if you understood the heading or whatever.
Yeah, you could do that too. That way they.
Wow.
So, but you're also watching them. So if you give them a certain heading, or you tell them, it also the secondary also shows you their flight level. So if you tell them drop and maintain a certain flight level, you'll see that even though it's just a blip, the secondary is showing you, they're actually dropping. So like, okay, they can hear me. They're good. Anyway, we brought them in. Landed them safely. And
did they ever find out what the problem was? Why they couldn't?
If they did, I never found out. I'm sure they investigated, but I ended up getting a meritorious service medal for that.
No kidding. That's a pretty big deal, man.
Yeah, because it was the middle of the war.
Yeah,
and these guys needed they were full of troops and cargo, and
wow,
who knows what they had in there. These C5s are humongous.
I mean, just imagine if you weren't able to communicate effectively with them.
Yeah.
You're talking 3 C5s full of troops.
Yeah.
That's a lot of personnel and equipment and everything that could have something could have gone bad.
It's pretty neat. I really that stuck in my mind. So that's the story I can tell my grandkids.
Yeah, heck yeah. Man, that's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Of course I had the opposite happen too in the tower where I almost caused a wreck.
Really?
Oh yeah. But I mean, it's stressful, like you said.
Yeah,
and it's a very stressful job. Now in the tower, it's even more difficult. You're only talking about 5 miles, a 5-mile radius.
Yeah.
As opposed to radar.
Fast paced.
It's very fast paced. The F-16s are eating up your airspace. Like, man, they're all over the place. Especially when you've got 10 different airplanes. They're practicing and they're doing all kinds of different patterns. And you got other planes coming into land, and you got other planes taking off, cargo. So it gets pretty hairy. And then at one point it didn't almost happen, but it was going to happen had my sergeant not stepped in and say, hey, Mark, hey, he said, hey, Longoria, what are you doing? I said, what's there? So you got an airplane over here coming in this way, and you got another plane landing the opposite direction on the same runway.
Oh,
basically.
wow.
I'm like, oh, and I kind of froze, and he keyed in and, told one to break out, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, it can get
good for him for knowing his job and being able to recognize it.
And you have to. I mean, we're human,
Yeah.
So you can only handle so much in your brain, and
well, I mean, I imagine that's why you have a sergeant standing behind
Absolutely.
you, and then he probably has somebody behind him.
Absolutely.
And
So the way it is we have a ground controller. He's talking to the air traffic on the ground that's taxiing, getting ready either to take off or coming in. We have another person that's taking care of all of the flight strips that I'm telling you about, keep track of who's where. And then we had the guy that's actually keying up and talking to the airplanes in the sky. Then you have your supervisor, which is, a more seasoned sergeant that's been doing air traffic control for quite a bit longer. He's overseeing the entire thing. Then literally two steps up in the tower, kind of in a throne, is an actual pilot.
Oh, wow.
F-16 pilot that's overseeing his guys that are out there.
Ah, I see.
And so if something goes wrong, I've got my sergeant, and the sergeant's got a captain up there.
Yeah.
And so, you got a lot of eyes making sure that we don't have any mishaps. Because, again, we're human.
Smart. Yeah.
So, and error can happen.
Yeah. And it happens all the time.
Yeah. But because of those extra measures and because everything's recorded, they take a good, it's probably not going to happen very often, and it doesn't. But it does every now and then.
Yeah.
Somebody might miss something.
Yeah. Did you ever run into an incident like with an aircraft that like they were having an emergency or anything like that?
I personally did not. We did have some, but not during my shift.
Okay.
We did have a C-130 that was coming in with an emergency. I think, they have 4 props, and I think one of their props was out, so it wasn't that big of a deal. They got 3 others. They got 3 other engines.
I mean, heck, they can fly that with one prop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but still, they have to declare an emergency.
Oh yeah.
But it wasn't anything major. There was another that I remember that they came in again. It wasn't on my shift. I heard the story that they came in, they landed, and they had problems with their brakes. They had brakes, but just not enough. And of course, then they have the reverse thrust to help them slow down. But what ended up happening was that the fire engines also got onto the runway and blasting water at the nose, trying to slow it down.
Oh my God! Are you serious?
Wow. I wasn't there. That was a story that I was told about. Yeah, there in Torrejon. So
I remember in San Diego, and you probably know about this, but one of the plane, a jet, something happened, and he's over the city, and he's like, well, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And ended up, he was able to, if I'm not mistaken, he was able to get that one out over the ocean, Jack. But there was another one that he couldn't, and it ended up crashing. It crashed in a residential area.
Wow. Here, I was talking about Randolph Air Force Base. We have the T-38s that fly around, and we had a T-38 go down probably about 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He was right on final. He's coming in almost to land, and he ejected, and he plowed his plane right into a field. So he was smart about it. Instead of just going to, there's a lot of neighborhoods in that area.
Oh yeah.
So he waited till the last minute and aimed his plane at a field, ejected, and boom, the plane crashed just a few feet away from the street.
Yeah.
But nowhere near home. So,
and I got the fortune. I served with the Air Wing for 7 months. Right, that was my one time with the Air Wing. But the one thing I learned, and I had no clue up to this point, was the checks and balances and the rules and the regulations that are on the pilots, the maintenance, I mean, there's so many things that they have to do. It is ridiculous.
It is. Yeah.
And one mistake, hey man, it's your butt.
That's right.
You're good luck. It was wild, and I got to sit in with the CG, so they're briefing all of these things, and it's like, hey, you go make sure this and this and that, and when the CG is the one, he is knee deep in everything, there's some crazy stuff.
Absolutely. No, it takes a lot. I mean, to have one airplane fly, it takes a lot of people, with a lot of checklists to make sure that everything is done right and safety first. I want to make sure that that our pilot gets back safe, and if we can save the aircraft, get that back too, because that's worth millions of dollars as well.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I used to think that, like, I go to a range and we're going to shoot heavy guns or whatever the case may be. I used to thought there was a lot of checks and balances in that. But after I went to the air wing and saw what was happening, I was like, man, we don't do anything. It's like we grab a gun, we go shoot, man. That's it. So I thought that was very interesting, like the contrast that's happening there.
A lot that goes into it. Yeah. So I have now nephews and nieces that are serving in the military, mainly the Army. And man, they come back sometimes with their stories. Say, man, we are so grateful when we hear those A-10s coming in. Like, yes, here comes the A-10s. Here comes the Air Force. Yeah, and then you remember the Air Force.
That's right. That's right. That's important, man.
Yeah, right.
Very cool. So, how long did you spend in Spain?
I spent 2 years in Spain.
Okay.
And I had 1 year left at that point. So they were going to send me back to the States. And I was like, I don't want to leave. I want to stay in Europe. They're like, well, you have to extend at least 1 more year because it requires minimum 2 years in Spain to stay in Europe. And so it was cheaper for the military for me to stay in Europe. But because I only had 1 year left and I was going to get out, they were going to bring me back stateside.
Right.
And so my first sergeant says, hey, well, if you extend 1 more year, you can get a 2-year assignment somewhere here in Europe, maybe even stay here.
Yeah.
And so he asked me, where do you want to go? And at that point, they had already announced that Torrejon Air Base was going to be shut down.
Okay.
We were no longer going to be there. The Spanish Air Force to this day still has it. It's theirs. But we were no longer going to occupy it. So I found out that the F-16s, and we had 3 squadrons of F-16s that were there, were going to be reassigned to Aviano Air Force Base in Italy.
Ooh.
So I was like, I'll go to Italy. I want to go to Italy.
Yeah.
And so they sent me there.
Wow.
I ended up spending 2 more years in Italy.
Wow. Okay. So what was the difference for you from Spain to Italy?
Well, there's no Spanish required in Italy. Everything's 100% English. But as far as, I mean, I was talking to the same pilots because I already knew them from 2 years in Spain. So they came over. And so that wasn't any different. We had F-16s there. I think one of the biggest difference had to do with the terrain right on the other. It was the air traffic control tower. Then we had the airstrip, and we had the base, and beyond the base was a mountain.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to always be careful with that mountain because obviously we have air traffic. So we want to make sure that, we were clear of that mountain. And it was a little bit, there were a few other mountains that we had to keep in mind. On top of that, we were right close to the Adriatic Sea. And the Adriatic Sea, during that time, we had the no-fly zone over Bosnia-Herzegovina. And so we had the Navy JFK aircraft carrier in the Adriatic.
Okay.
So then we had those planes coming in sometimes.
Wow.
So on top of our F-16s, the Army also was at Aviano Air Base. They still are with the Chinook CH-47s.
Okay.
The double propeller. They had those there. And then we have, of course, the Navy F-18s and AWACS and others that are coming in also from the Adriatic. So it became pretty crazy. Yeah, especially during the no-fly zone. Because our F-16s would go out there to enforce the no-fly zone, but then you had the F-18s as well. You had the AWACS up, in the air.
Wow, yeah.
It would get pretty scary sometimes, but
Now, when you would go on shift, how long is a shift for you?
It changed during the Gulf War. We were working 12-hour shift, 4 on, 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually like that because we worked for 4 days and we had 4 days off.
Oh well, yeah, that's not bad.
So 4 days off, you're in Europe.
Yeah.
You get to go out and enjoy. Of course, we had to stay close by.
Yeah.
But we got to really.
But you really could enjoy the culture.
Yeah, take in the culture. Yeah, get to know other places around there. If you wanted to go outside of the area, you just ask for permission, and they were usually, as long as we weren't in war, anything happening there, they would let us. So yeah, it was nice. I got to see a lot and learn a lot.
So did you get to go to other countries?
I did. I visited a total of 11 countries while I was there.
No kidding.
Between my two assignments in Spain and Italy. Yeah. So in fact, I told my mom that the 2 years that I was in Italy, when I got my orders to Italy, I told my mom, so Mom, love you, but I'm not coming back for 2 years. I'm going to Italy, and I want to spend all of my leave getting to know this side of the world because who knows if I'll ever come back. And I told her, in fact, if you want, let me talk to my brothers and sisters and see if we can all pitch in and buy you a flight so you can come over here.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended up doing that. So we flew her over, and I took her to Germany and Italy and Austria.
Wow, that's very nice.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. But yeah, I got to visit several other. I think my most interesting trip was when probably can't say too much, but there was a airplane that I knew flew to Turkey every Friday.
Okay.
And so I ended up taking a hop on that airplane to Turkey.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, to Turkey. And it happened to be a tanker. I think it was a KC-135 aircraft aerial
where
tanker.
Air refueler.
Air refueler, yeah. So I was there. I got to sit right behind the pilot.
Nice.
So like where I guess the navigator would sit, so the pilot, the co-pilot, like a little bit higher above the pilot, so I get to see everything that's going on. And so he radios me and says, "Hey, Longoria, we're getting ready to refuel. If you want to go to the back of the plane, you can see that." I was like, cool. I went back there, sat by the boom operator and a big C-141. I think they're retired now, the 141s, but C-141 comes up, and boom goes out. I mean, you can. The pilots were like from here to that truck. I mean,
you can see them.
Yeah, I can see them waving them. Yeah, I can see them talking, everything. It was so close.
I got to fly in one of those one time.
Yeah.
And we went, like, it was I think we went from California, we were going to Florida, but there were, what was it, maybe a F-16 something. I don't know what it was that was following, but they were refueling them along the way. But we did the whole thing in one chunk, and we got to watch them refuel. And it's the coolest thing.
Yeah,
I don't even know how they're able to do it.
It's crazy how they just line them up and like one's done, flies off, the other one comes in.
Yeah.
Boom operator connects them, and once they're done, they flood. Another one comes in.
It's like, pretty cool.
That is pretty awesome.
I don't know. How do you get that job? That's a crazy job.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm joining up, I want to refuel planes in the air. Okay, well, I got a job for you.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So talk to me a little bit about Italy and what all you got to do there.
Well, again, we got to really just learn the culture. Had an Italian girlfriend for a while. So that was really interesting because although she knew English, she was more comfortable speaking Italian.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know Italian, but I picked it up very, very fast because it's very similar to Spanish.
Oh, okay.
So anyone that is fluent in Spanish can go to Italy and pick up, I would say, a good 40%, 50% maybe of what they're saying.
Oh, wow.
Just because a lot of the words are very, very, very similar. So she and I would have a conversation, and she's speaking Italian, I'd be speaking in English, and then I started learning a little bit more Italian. Then I'd throw some Italian in there, and she'd speak English also. So that was pretty interesting. That really helped me a lot to learn more Italian.
Oh yeah,
just hearing her over and over, then I would understand most of what she was saying, and I'd say, "Well, wait, I missed that. What's that word mean?" And then she would tell me, like, "Oh, okay." So I'd pick up another word from my vocabulary.
So, that's really cool.
Yeah, but it was fun. Italy, we got to, we're in the northern part of Italy. We're just maybe a 45-minute train ride south towards Venice.
Oh, wow.
So Venice was great.
Yeah.
We'd go over there and spend Carnivale.
Yeah.
There, of course, we went to Rome and Pisa and all the big places. We got to travel during my leave. But outside of that, I mean, you could go north. And within a day, you could travel 3 countries.
Oh, wow.
You could be in Spain and go have lunch in Austria and then go have dinner in Germany. I mean, you could just drive around or,
take a train or something like that. Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can't even get through Texas in a day.
I
mean, come on. Yeah.
I know, it's crazy. This is a big state.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's pretty wild. So, I mean, you got to visit a lot of stuff, see a lot of things, which is awesome.
Yeah. And again, the 2 years that I was in Italy, my friend was still stuck in Idaho. So he hated me even more. Yeah, the entire time. So he ended up going to Afghanistan. He got orders to Afghanistan. And on his way back, he called me and said, "Hey, man, I'm coming back to stateside." And I said, "Stop by Italy. Come visit me in Italy." So he did. He came to Italy and we hung out there, and I took him around different places, and we had a good time. So,
but he was doing air traffic control in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, he went there. Yeah. Once you get your job assigned, then that's what you do, regardless of where you're at. So yeah, that's what he was doing in Afghanistan. But it ended up working better for him than for me. The whole air traffic control deal. He actually already retired as an air traffic controller.
No kidding.
So he left the military because he was stateside, even though he hated kind of where he was at. He actually got to know. And because he was constantly coordinating with the FAA controllers, civilian FAA controllers, created a relationship. They brought him in, left the military, immediately went into the FAA as a civilian, and kept on, and then retired after 20-some years.
Wow!
So
now I don't remember who it was I was talking to, but they did air traffic control, and they stayed in too long because there is a cutoff age, and he couldn't transfer over.
I believe it's 37.
Yeah.
He can't be older than 37. At least it was back then. It might have changed by now. So I had an unfortunate experience. I say unfortunate, but everything works out. So when I left Italy, my idea was, okay, I already got my FAA certification. I'm going straight to San Antonio. Again, this is the FAA. This is where you would come back then. I don't know if it still is.
Yeah.
This is where you would come and report and say. And so I said, okay, here, I've got my FAA certification. I just left the military. I'm ready to join as a civilian. And they're like, okay, very good. So go ahead and, we're going to schedule you for your physical. We're going to schedule you for your aviation exam. And if you pass both, then we'll move forward. So, okay. So I got scheduled for both. I passed them both. And I was like, all right, I'm ready for my assignment. This is like you're working for the government. So you can't go apply at one airport.
Yeah.
The FAA tells you, okay, this is where we need air traffic controllers. And then you pick where you want to go. So even though I passed my physical and I passed my aviation exam or traffic control exam, when I went back to report and say, okay, I'm passed, I'm ready. At that point, the lady that I was talking to says, well, you'll need to go find a job because there are no jobs right now for air traffic control. That's what do you mean there's no jobs? We've got there's a hiring freeze and we've got a very long wait list. So we're going to add you to the list.
Wow.
So she says, but believe me, you need to go get a job because it's going to be a while before we call you. A while, I thought, 6 months.
Yeah.
They called me 7 years later. It took 7 years to get to my name.
Wow.
Yeah. And by that point, I already had a business going. And so like, well,
holy cow.
I was engaged.
7 years.
7 years.
That's insane.
Yeah. So, well, I didn't know there's a hiring freeze. Otherwise I wouldn't have left. I wouldn't have left. Italy. I wouldn't have left the airports. I would have stayed in.
Yeah.
But I had no contacts. I had no one guiding me, helping me. So I just figured I'll just get out of here. I'm certified. I'm a shoo-in. I was going there. Yeah, I can pass my exam. I can pass my physical. Let's go. But had no idea there was a hiring freeze. Never did any research. Never. So,
wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
So you came back to San Antonio. You just got a job here locally.
So I actually moved. I moved back to the Valley, where I'm from. Stayed there with my mom, helped her out, had a job there. I ended up partnering up with another gentleman. We had a business for advertising and marketing.
Okay.
We did that for a few years. Then I ended up back in San Antonio probably almost 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I decided to get into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a licensed agent, but I always wanted to get into real estate investing. So that's really what I'm doing now. I have my license and I take care of my clients, but I really enjoy investing in real estate, learning a lot about that. I work with a lot of investors. I work with several builders, and now my sons are learning that as well. And so
when you say investing in properties, like buy a property, get it fixed up or something, and then resell.
Yeah. So you're familiar with Dan Cano, Daniel Cano, and what he's doing.
Yeah.
Well, he and I had a conversation once, and he was kind of wondering what to do, and so I told him, "This is what I'm doing. You might want to consider it." We both ended up doing it.
Yeah.
So I have 3 homes that are housed. 90% are veterans that are housed there. They're just single guys that needed a place to stay, and so I rent out the homes by the room rather than. So I have a total of 21 rooms. They're all filled right now.
Wow.
That fluctuates,
Yeah.
It changes. Sometimes we have some vacancies, but right now they're all full, and it's great because it's because I've always kind of been more of an entrepreneur. I never really had a W-2. I don't have Social Security. Don't have, that big fund that I can go to my retirement.
Yeah.
So I had to create something. My wife's getting ready to retire within 5 years, probably 4 years. And so about 4 years ago, I decided, you know what, I need to start planning for my retirement because I basically can't retire if I'm just going to be selling real estate.
Yeah.
That's a 1099. That's not a W-2. I don't have anything. Don't really have anything to fall back on.
Right.
Of any type of pension or anything like that. So, I started buying these homes and renting them out. And so now I've got a steady flow of income from that side on top of my real estate sales that whenever she's ready to retire, I can step away a little bit. I don't think I'll step away fully from my license, but I don't have to do the
won't have
daily
to work so hard.
Yeah. And I've got my Reynolds, taking care of me.
So the properties, the 3 properties that you're talking about, and so you're doing the same thing, or Daniel Cano, I guess, is doing the same thing that you were doing. You got him into it,
right?
Which is an incredible thing that you're doing for veterans.
It really is, because it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for our veterans, that a lot of them are homeless.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are literally living on the streets or living in a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, just today, I have one gentleman moving in that's coming out of a shelter.
No kidding.
He's a U.S. Navy veteran, and just hit some hard times, and he's by himself, and he can't afford to rent an apartment. Some of these guys have, they have some issues in their background.
Yeah.
And so even if they could qualify financially, a lot of people look at their background and say, sorry. So when I tell these guys, look, I'm willing to work with other organizations to help you, and get another step up and kind of get you to where you want to be, but don't bring the streets in. This is not the streets anymore. You're not in the streets. You have a house. You're sharing the living space, which is living room, kitchen, dining room, with these other guys. Everyone is in the same boat. Just let's work together to help you. Everyone's being helped here. So yeah, it's a win-win, because I get that income. They get a place to stay. We have a very good relationship. I'm not the scary landlord, like, oh, here he comes. I greet these guys, shake their hands every time I see them, talk to them. I know their families, I know their stories, and they feel comfortable. And it's really a blessing that I get a chance to work with these guys and help them in their time of need, when everybody else is shutting the door in their face.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really, a lot of times that's all you need. You need somebody to take a chance and say, hey, we're going to help you out, or whatever. And once you do that, many, many, many people become very successful.
Someone to believe in you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they stop believing in themselves.
Yeah.
Because they had the door shut in their face so many times. Mm-hmm. They know that this record is is haunting them. Mm-hmm. And, they start losing hope.
Yeah.
Then that's when they turn to drugs and stuff that's just going to lead them to the wrong path. And
right.
When people like Daniel Cano and I and others that go out and say, you know what, we'll give you a chance.
Yeah.
But don't screw it up. I'm very blunt, and you have to be with these guys. We're trying to help you here. Don't take advantage of what we're doing. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
And so you get your bad apples every now and then, but I would say the vast majority, these are good guys with a very bad past. Some of them are very bad pasts.
Yeah.
They've been in prison, been in jail, had all kinds of stuff that's going on, but it's in their past. Mm-hmm. And it's not stuff that that they're still doing. Yeah. But because of that, they just can't seem to get ahead. So we try to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And now, are there other organizations here in the area doing the same type of thing?
So everything comes from government funds.
Okay.
There's federal funds that are tailored to homelessness,
mm-hmm.
to try to eliminate homelessness.
Right.
So I don't have access to those federal funds, but there are other 501c3 nonprofit organizations that only do that.
Yeah.
Or they might do that as one of the things in their mission. So, we work with several organizations, and then the word kind of gets out about our homes
mm-hmm.
between me and Daniel and others. And so, it works out. So these guys, instead of being out like today, 100 degrees out, under a tree somewhere, they're going to be sitting in my house with air conditioning and running water and hot water, and they can shower and wash their clothes and have free Wi-Fi. All of the utilities are included in their
mm-hmm.
rent. Sometimes the rent is subsidized by these organizations that take care of it. So sometimes they do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works out to where these organizations will come in and say, okay, we're going to help you 100% of your rent. Then we're going to drop it. We'll pay 75, you pay 25, and then we'll drop it 50 and 50.
Increments to get them back on
exactly. And that's the whole idea, is how can we help these guys do better for themselves?
Yeah.
This is not you're going to live here for free and we're going to pay your rent forever, and you're just going to mooch off the government forever.
Yeah.
This is a step up. We're trying to help you to get to the next level of where you want to be, because ultimately they want to have their own place.
Yeah.
And these guys have dreams, man. These guys they're smart guys. They have dreams and things they want to do. They just haven't had the chance and the opportunity. So we give them that opportunity. At least one of the steps towards that path.
Yeah. Very important step.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's an incredible thing. Now, because this is the only place, the two of you, the only ones I've ever heard of doing this.
Really?
Like, yeah, I didn't know this was a thing until I met Daniel.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I was like, whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Is it all over the country? Are people doing that?
You know, I have a friend of mine that introduced me to the idea. He never did it.
Yeah.
But he knew one of the guys, and one of his close friends worked for one of these organizations. And he says, Mark, there's opportunity here. You're in real estate and you want to be a real estate investor, you should consider this. So he kind of got me into the idea, but I've never really looked outside of San Antonio. I imagine because it's federally funded, that there's organizations, if not the same organizations across the country, there's got to be others that are also tapping into the same federal funds to help homelessness. I haven't looked beyond San Antonio. Wow. But I imagine there are.
Yeah. So if there's a veteran out there that wants to do something similar to this, where would they go to kind of start figuring that out?
Well, I had to figure it out on my own. There's no go-to place. There's no one person that teaches you how to do it. So it was a lot of phone calls. What I did, and what I would recommend to someone else that might be wanting to look at doing something like this, is reach out to the city first. See what resources the city has for homelessness. They're more than likely, besides the city, having their own organization to help homelessness, they probably work with 2, 3, 4, 5 different organizations that do the same, because the city itself cannot handle the entire homeless population.
Right.
So they have to work with other organizations. So I would start there. They'll probably put you in contact with another organization who then will say, hey, well, there's this other organization. Okay, that's kind of what happened with me. I was working with only one organization, and then they told me at some point I still had 2 or 3 rooms available. They're like, we don't have anybody else right now.
Yeah.
But call this other guy. He works for another. Okay, I call that guy.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, well we do. And then that guy's like, well, call this other guy because he works for another organization.
Yeah.
And so I'm working with like 3 or 4 right now.
That's really cool.
That help. Yeah, with the same mission to get these guys off the street and give them a safe place. Streets are bad.
Yeah,
they're horrible.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to break these guys sometimes, to break the street mentality off their heads. Like, hey, that's no longer you. That's not your identity anymore. You really got to switch your brain, and you've moved up to another level.
Yeah.
And you're on your way to a better place. But
now, as they come into your home and they're starting to rent places, doing things like that for you guys, do they have a means to be able to go for like therapy or other places to help them find jobs and all that type of stuff? Is that through the same type of organization?
Yeah, and if it's not that particular organization that's helping them with housing, they have connections because they're a nonprofit. They have partnerships with other guys. So if it's food you need, well, let's connect you with a food pantry. If it's medical, we'll connect you over here. So yeah, somehow, some way, these guys just got to ask. So both the guy like myself, the homeowner needs to ask all these organizations who's available and what resources are available. And then the guys themselves, the tenants or the veterans that are coming in, don't be shy. Call, ask, where can I find some help? Help is out there. You just got to go find it. It's not going to come knocking at your door.
Do you find that, especially in the veteran community, that people are just proud and they don't want to ask for help?
Maybe so. I think some of them are also jaded.
Yeah.
I think some of them are just like, man, this is the rock bottom of my life. Yeah. I've got nobody. I don't have a job. I don't have anywhere to stay. My family's abandoned me. Maybe they were into drugs back in the day and the family just got rid of them, basically. Everyone has a different story, but I think that's part of it too. They get to a place where, okay, I've just come to realize that I'm homeless and I'm worthless.
Right.
And so I'll just make the pain go away by getting myself drunk all the time or getting into drugs. And they take on that life. So we have to kind of rewire their brains. Like, that is not you, man. You went through that. Learn from it, get out of it, and let's help you get to another place, a better place.
Yeah.
So once they're able to switch that, in their mind, then they start seeing themselves like, okay, some of them are, some of my tenants they're in school right now. They're in college. Some of them are working already. Some of them they have like a day labor. They got to show up at 7 o'clock and see if you guys have any work for me, temporary, a temporary job. But they're trying, they're doing something.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between those guys and the ones that are just, and there are the opposite spectrum. where they just want to take advantage of any government help they can, and they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And well, unfortunately, that's not going to last very long.
Right.
Before they're back out to where they came from.
Yeah. You got to want it for yourself.
Absolutely. You got to want it. And most of them do.
Yeah. And if you don't want it, you're not going to get it. You know?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you'll get it offered and it'll happen, but it's not going to last very long.
Yeah.
Because if you're back into your old ways and you're getting in trouble with your landlord, you're getting in trouble with the organization, you're not reporting to your case manager, you're not reporting to your parole officer, all right, well, you did it to yourself.
Yeah. And you burn those bridges.
Right.
And many times you burn a bridge, you're not going to get it back.
Where else? Yeah. Once you burn that bridge with the government or that entity, they're like, sorry, we helped you. You messed it up and you're blacklisted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do hope and pray that these guys, more and more of them, get out of that little rut and that little mentality and say, you know what, there are organizations out there. There are people like Mark and Daniel that are willing to give us an opportunity.
Right.
Man, let's go find them. Let's go out there and take a look. Yeah, take a look at that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So would you be willing, if anybody was wanting to kind of get into something like you're doing, would you be willing to have a conversation with them?
Sure. Yeah, I think the best way to reach me is via my email. Because my phone, I only have one phone, and it's for my personal use, it's for my business use, it's for my tenants, it's for my real estate sales. So it gets pretty busy. I had to put it on silent while we were doing this. But probably the best way to reach out to me would be using my email. So I go by Marc, M-A-R-C, not K, M-A-R-C at GX, the letter G is in golf, X is in X-ray, the number 3 properties. So M-A-R-C at GX3properties.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll put that in the link as well. So,
all right, cool.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. Very interesting. Air traffic control.
Yeah.
Hats off to you.
Yeah.
I don't think I can handle that stress. So
one more thing I forgot to mention, Daniel, who's now doing this, same thing I'm doing. He was actually my very first roommate in Spain.
Was he really?
Yeah. So we've known each other, since 1990. Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he ended up in San Antonio. We reconnected, and so
yeah.
But he was the guy that sponsored me when I first came into Spain. He was there waiting for me and showed me around, and we ended up rooming together. So it was pretty cool.
Well, let's see. And he was, correct me if I'm wrong. He was, oh man, I cannot remember. PJs. He was a PJ. Did he do that?
What's PJ?
Isn't it PJ? This is kind of the special forces type thing for the Air Force.
I don't know what he ended up doing because I was there doing my air traffic control thing. That I ended up moving to Italy.
I thought he did that for
and we actually lost contact for many years.
Yeah.
For many years we lost contact, and then through social media we found each other again. And hey, you're in San Antonio? Yeah, so am I. So.
Yeah, social media is an amazing thing,
right?
Because you can connect with people that you haven't seen in years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also horrible.
Yeah, it is. You're right. So it works both ways.
Yeah, it's like anything, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure.
Is there anything that you would like to, leave the listeners with before we wrap this up?
I just, I would reiterate. If you're looking to do better for yourself in the area of maybe helping out some veterans, you might consider what Daniel and I are doing, because I'm sure this is not a San Antonio problem. This is a problem across the country. There are a lot of very good veterans out there, very good-hearted veterans that had a mistake. They made a mistake in their life that need some help. And maybe you're the person that can reach out to them and help them out. Maybe it's not providing shelter, but maybe you can provide them a box of food or something. Work with one of the organizations, volunteer with one of the organizations, say, hey, I'll come in on Saturdays and maybe even it's once a month and do something.
Yeah.
So give back to the community one way or another. And then to those guys, especially that are in that place where they need to do something, man, just change your mentality, man. Get out there. Don't lose hope. Suicide is not the answer. It's not drugs and, getting drunk off your ass at night But get out there and start asking. There are some resources out there, and just do the best you can to get out there and find that help.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. And of course, you bring up suicide. I always end every episode talking about suicide and places they can go to get help.
Awesome.
So for all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need help, anything like that, remember the VA does have some great resources. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can also text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options are going to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. Mark cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, you're doing fantastic, remember your buddies that you served with. Give them a call. Reach out to them. Ask them how they're doing. If they need a helping hand, go ahead and reach out and help them.
100%.
So with that, hey, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, brother.
It was awesome meeting you.
Likewise.
To all the listeners, stay motivated. Change the thoughts.